Welcome back to another episode of Chapter Blue. I'd like to welcome my guest, Trevor Williams, to the show today. Trevor is a firefighter in West Hollywood and is an entrepreneur of three first responder businesses. He grew up as a missionary in Africa and Haiti, and he now serves as a firefighter in Los Angeles for the past 15 years. Thank you for coming on today, Trevor. Tell us a little more about your background and what made you decide to be a firefighter.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we were able to get this worked out. So Trevor Williams, I'm 36 years old. I'm a firefighter in Los Angeles County, for the Los Angeles County Fire Department. Been with county for about 10 years. I'll hit 10 years in February. So in like 3 months from now. And before that, I was a volunteer firefighter for about 5 years with the city of Sierra Madre. Um, what brought me to firefighting? Probably my upbringing. I grew up in a missionary family. We lived in Africa for nearly 4 years when I was younger. At the time, it was called Zaire. It's called the Democratic Republic of Congo now. And we lived there during the Rwanda genocides. If you've seen Hotel Rwanda, we were experiencing that during that time frame. And Rwanda bordered Zaire, so that impacted us. Um, at one point, it got too dangerous for us to continue living in Zaire, and we moved to South Africa to get a little break. However, South Africa was also dangerous for its own reasons, a lot of gang violence down there. Um, and eventually we moved out of Africa altogether. I lived in Virginia, lived in Connecticut, um, California right now. Most of my life has now been in California. But when I was a teenager, when I was 12, my family moved to Haiti. Haiti is an island in the Caribbean. And if a lot of people now they've heard of Haiti, but before it was only Dominican Republic, like people had heard of. They like to vacation there, but not really to Haiti. And Haiti and the Dominican Republic together make up the island of Hispaniola. Hispaniola is about 565 miles south of Florida, to give some reference. But I lived there for 3 years during my high school, end of middle school age. And Haiti was also it was dangerous at the time there as well. Um, it was kind of like a condensed Africa. They had their own issues going on, a lot of civil unrest. President was being overthrown at the time, lots of roadblocks and violence. So after 3 years, it became too unsafe for us to stay there as well. And I ended up in California. So we moved to California, and I was 15 and a half at the time. And that's right around the time people were asking you, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be? And firefighting sounded kind of along the lines of the missionary work. It was exciting, it was active. I was able to help people, and I couldn't see myself sitting behind a desk. So I started to pursue that. Out here in Los Angeles, they have really good programs for kids that are interested in being firefighters. So I joined an Explorer program, and with the Explorers, they take teenagers in and they teach you all the fundamentals of like basic firefighting. So you're learning about pulling the hose and your ropes and knots and putting on the breathers and throwing ladders, along with etiquette. So station etiquette is huge. Um, Being on time, being clean cut, washing the rigs, sir, yes, ma'am, just being, it's a paramilitary organization. So just learning all that, and it's great for any kid to learn, a little discipline goes a long way. And I loved all of it. So I started to buy into it, and before long, they sent me to an Explorer Academy, and the Explorer Academy allows you to start doing your ride-alongs. And the ride-alongs are really where you find out if this is for you or not, because that's where you see the blood and guts and the violence and the fire and everything that comes along with the emergency service and 911 responses. So I did that, I finished the Explorer Academy in 2008, and I started my ride-alongs, and they were 24-hour shifts. When possible, sometimes they'd only let you do 12 hours, but being able to wake up and go on a call um, is a big part of it too, because that's the lifestyle, and getting up and responding gets your heart rate going, and you got to wake up really quick and be able to perform. So I did that for a couple years, and as soon as I turned 18, I started applying. I applied to 60 different fire departments. I traveled. I went to all the big cities, Vegas and Texas and Washington, FDNY and New York. But ultimately, I wanted to work for LA County because that's what I knew. That's where I'd been trained. And I knew that department specifically I loved. And um, so, but I said I would, whoever hires me first, that's where I'll commit to. And um, fortunately, LA County hired me first. So
Very
I was, yeah. So I was about 26 years old, 25, um, when I got picked up with LA County, and I'd done my EMT because they want you to have your EMT, and I'd worked as an EMT for a little bit. Um, I did some construction. I was a carpenter. That's how I paid the bills for the 8 years I was trying to get hired. Um, but those skills and being able to use your hands and everything that comes in really handy on the job because they like tradesmen, and being able to troubleshoot, problem solve. That's kind of a big part of the job. Um, so yeah, I can catch my breath there, take a break if you want to.
wow, that's a lot. I actually have a lot of questions. So, you said your family did a lot of missionary work. How did they get into
Mhm.
that? What got them involved in that?
I'd say God. My dad was a lawyer actually, and he left. I think it's called a practice. He left the practice to become a missionary out of the blue, and he said he felt called by God to do it, and we weren't sent by the church or anything like that. He got involved with a company called World Vision, which is one of the largest Christian nonprofit organizations, and they're still one of the biggest ones out there, in almost every country. So he got involved with World Vision, and they had a spot in Zaire. And World Vision does a lot of stuff. So they do education, they build houses, they dig wells. Um, a lot of people know about World Vision from sponsoring a child. You can sponsor a child with food and education for like $1 a day or something like that. It's probably gone up by now, but um, yeah. So got involved with World Vision, and for both Africa and Haiti, those are both World Vision jobs, and he ended up being the national director of World Vision in Haiti. And then there was a earthquake that we should probably talk about here soon, but there's a big earthquake in Haiti in 2010. And after that, he relocated to New York City, and he was the national director there for the New York City office.
Well, I can definitely see how that kind of opened your eyes to wanting to serve, and taking on your role as a firefighter. Um, as a kid and experiencing living in Africa and the dangers in Haiti and all of that, I mean, how did you perceive the world at that time? I mean, because you were young, I'm sure, and then having to be exposed to that, how did that affect you? And I guess maybe go into the Haiti earthquake that you experienced.
Yeah, so Africa, I was 4 when we moved there, but I still remember um, good amount of it. There was some trauma there that like I don't think really like messed me up or anything, but I definitely remember it. And I think that it I knew like my situation was different as a missionary there because there weren't a lot of kids that looked like me or that spoke English.
Right.
So I was different and didn't have a lot of people to play with or interact with. So um luckily there was an international school that I got to go to, and my mom was a teacher there. So that's where I got to have friends and interact with. the local Africans as well, the ones that were going to that school. Um, but yeah, you definitely kind of grow up a little faster. You're seeing like military guys with guns running around the streets, and you hear gunfire at night. Our gunfire would hit our house at night. Um, so that was scary. I knew what it was, and it it I don't know. It's kind of I think as Americans, we are in like a little bubble, right? And a lot of kids don't get to experience the rest of the world. You're in Thailand, which is really cool. That so you're getting to experience a different country, and um when you don't travel and when you don't get to see that, especially poorer countries, um life is just normal and you think that that's how it is. And really we're very blessed in the United States and very privileged, and we take a lot of stuff for granted. So I recommend everybody travel at least, and not just the nice places. But if you can serve somewhere or go on a little trip to help out, it'll kind of reset you a little bit and balance you out. Um, Haiti was the same way. I was older, so I was able to get into more trouble, more independent, out on the streets running around with my friends, and um, same thing. Lots of, I saw my first murder in Haiti, and um, just it seemed like the violence was more um, in one place, like congested, I guess you could say. Um, so my mindset was probably like nobody else my age normally, um, where I came to terms with death like at as a teenager, where like every day I was like, today might be the day. I might not make it through today. I might catch a bullet today, because that was normal. Like people were dying around me. Friends were getting kidnapped, like schoolmates were getting kidnapped. We had guards. We lived behind gates and barbed wire fences, and our car was bulletproof. Like we had to be really careful.
Wow.
Um, but I wasn't. I was a teenager running around. So, um, but yeah, I came to terms with that. And once you can kind of like let go of death and being afraid of it, you can start to live. So my first year there was like I was terrified. I didn't. It was like almost crippling, right? Like I'm like I'm gonna die here. And then once I kind of let that go, I started to have fun, and I started to be able to be a teenager and live my life. And um, it it was it doesn't sound healthy, but it was healthy. It was like a healthy mindset to have. So luckily I made it out of there um to California, but in 2010 I hadn't been back to Haiti in 5 years, and my family had moved back. So they actually left me in California. Once I turned
Wow.
18, they're like, we're gonna go back to Haiti. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna keep pursuing firefighting and I'll be okay at working construction. I can pay the bills and stuff. And I've always been kind of independent. So it worked out, but I went to visit them in 2010. Um, and that was when Haiti had its biggest earthquake ever. They'd never had an earthquake before. And it was a 7.0 earthquake. It lasted 39 seconds long, and it killed 300,000 people, which is one of the most devastating natural disasters in modern history. Um, there's only 7 million people in the country, so it took out a big percentage of everybody that lived there. The infrastructure is very poor, unreinforced concrete buildings just stacked on top of each other, and it's a mountainous island. So there's mountains going all the way down to the ocean. And it just there was like a domino effect, and it just wiped out thousands and thousands of houses, including the house that my family was living in. And so I've got a mom and dad and two little sisters, and my two little sisters and my mom were it was an apartment complex where they're living, and 5 stories tall on the edge of a mountain. They're on the bottom floor, and that apartment complex completely pancaked down, all 5 stories with them inside. So there's about a 24-hour period where we had no contact. All the cell phone towers went down. 7 million people were trying to make phone calls and texts, and the United States and other countries were trying to call in and contact, and it was just chaos and no communication. Um, so I was at an orphanage on the second floor of a orphanage helping out there when the earthquake happened. I was okay. Buildings around my building collapsed. There's dust everywhere, people crying. Um, but our that orphanage stood, and there was 110 orphans in that orphanage, and they were all okay. Cracks in the building, everything, like all the furniture tipped over and the paintings came off the wall, but the building stood. So that was good. We were able to get the kids out. But I didn't know where my mom and my sisters were. I didn't know where my dad was. I didn't know the extent of the devastation because I was like down in the city. I couldn't see what was going on around me. Initially, I thought like a big truck was crashing into our building. That's kind of what it sounded like and felt like a rumble that just intensified. Um, but after 5 seconds, it wasn't fun anymore. 39 seconds seemed like an eternity. But my dad eventually found me. He had been at the World Vision office, and now it's nighttime, so it's dark out. And he told me he had this like look I'd never seen from him before. And he pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, Trevor, I went back to the apartment where your mom and your sisters were. There's nobody alive in the apartments." And but he couldn't find them. Um, and so I was like, I was confused, right? I was like, I didn't want to believe anything bad had happened to them. And he didn't have confirmation, but it didn't sound good. It didn't look good. And we also, yeah, again, didn't know like how many people were affected. Was it the whole world? Was it just Haiti? Was it the city we lived in? There was no communication. We were just like in the dark. Um, so he had a vehicle. He took me and he said, let's go to the pastor's house. He lives up the mountain. He has a satellite phone. We can call the states and kind of make our game plan. So he took me, took forever. There was rubble in all the roads. Most places have walls, so all those walls had fallen into the roads, and that's when I started seeing like the bad stuff. Right, there was like parents with candles, like trying to dig through rubble, kids with candles trying to dig their parents out, and there's a lot of blood in the streets because the Haitian culture is very outdoor culture, so people were always walking, so they were getting hit by collapsed stuff. A lot of people were buried. And we just like slowly made our way through this rubble up the mountain. Meanwhile, um, there was hundreds of aftershocks too, and each aftershock they were big, so they were like 5.0 aftershocks, which brought down more buildings, and we didn't know if something bigger was coming or what, but it wasn't safe to be inside or near any building, and they just kept hitting again and again. Nothing as big as the initial one, but they were still doing damage. So we made our way up the mountain. It took probably like 2 hours, and got the satellite phone. The pastor gave us a satellite phone. We called my mom's parents, so my grandparents, and we just gave them a. We didn't know much, so we're like, "Hey, me and my dad, we're alive. We haven't found anybody else. You know, there's a lot of confusion right now, and we're gonna find them as soon as we can. But none of the phones work. We don't know where anybody is, and that's all we could do. And they didn't know what to do, and we just told them pray. You know, that's the only thing you can do at this moment. Um, so we tried to go to bed. I couldn't sleep. Again, the aftershocks kept hitting and hitting, and I didn't know if that's scary too. You know, I didn't know if the next one was going to bring down the building I was in. On top of thinking about my mom and my sisters and thinking that they might not be alive anymore. So I started to like just plan for the next day, and I made a list of everything we would need, shovels and water, and um, yeah, I didn't know what else to do.
How
The
old are
next
you when this happened?
19.
You were 19. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you were visiting at this time. So how
Hmm.
long when did you arrive there before this all happened?
I'd only been there a few days.
Oh, wow.
So I knew it was like not a coincidence. It's like I haven't been back in the country in 5 years. Just happened to go a few days before this big thing happened, and um, we can deviate real quick just because there's some cool stuff that happened. Like as a side story, I went to go teach firefighting, and I was going to have a job, like a little month-long job with the United Nations, and help them start up this new fire program and teach the Haitians how to be firemen and stuff. And um, I had already been like gotten the blessing like through email and like setting it up, but there's a formality of it where I had to go in and do like a little interview and get my ID and badge and everything. And I was scheduled to do that on the day of the earthquake during the time of the earthquake. And the few days before, I was just kind of like, well, why don't I do it now? Like, let, let me see if I can reschedule and do it earlier. That way I'm not like wasting time. I'm already here. So I rescheduled and got the blessing, got the ID, and had I had gone during the time of the earthquake, that entire building collapsed. 300 people died in there. Like I would have been in there. So just like rescheduling that saved my life, you know. And again, I don't
Yeah.
think any of this is coincidence. I think, you know, I was there for a reason. Um, so yeah, and I didn't think about this until like months later where I was like, oh my gosh, like I found out that building collapsed. But in the moment I didn't know, and I didn't know for a while. But back to my family, um, they couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, as soon as the sun's starting to come up, um, I was like, all right, Dad, let's go. We got to go find them. Let's go dig them out or whatever. You know, maybe they're all alive and they're just trapped or something. And I was trying to be optimistic. And it was my first time seeing Haiti in the daylight because I was down in the city when it happened, and then it got dark, and then we went up the mountain and stayed there for the night. So I'm up the mountain looking down Haiti, like down the mountains of Haiti all the way to the ocean, and it just looked like a war zone. There's fires everywhere, like the sky is orange, smoke. You could hear people just wailing. Um, and it was it was like the most vivid thing ever. Like it's still stuck in my brain to this day. And this was like 15 years ago. Um, and and my dad started talking about funeral plans, and that's when I lost it. I was like, oh man, he really doesn't believe they're alive. And this is now more real to me because I can see it in the daylight and see like, dude, the whole country is just leveled. This is really bad. And so that kind of all hit me all at once. And yeah, I lost it. And um so I was like, no, but I got to be strong for my family. Let's just go. And my dad's like, nope, we got to eat. You're going to need your strength. So it's like, I wanted to go so bad, but my dad's a very calculated, wise guy. And he was saying all the right things, except for the funeral part. But he was being smart. He was being
Right.
smart about everything. And so we ate a little bit, started heading down the mountain, and there's people walking up the mountain with like all their belongings, just beat up. Like some people were bleeding, and then there's people walking down the mountain with all of their belongings, and nobody really knew like had any direction or knew where to go. But um, I started making eye contact with the Haitians there, and I look different. I'm not Haitian. But we all like it was like a brotherhood almost, like we all went through the same thing, and we had like that connection. So like I felt like my eye contact was saying like I'm being strong for you, and vice versa. Um ugh. So we got down the mountain and we stopped at my dad's office, the World Vision headquarters there, to just get all the stuff we would need to um dig. I guess we needed shovels. And we got there and we started hearing like a commotion. And they said, your family's here. And so I was looking around, I didn't see them. I thought maybe I misheard them or something. But um my mom and one of my sisters came in one of the gates, and they were like just covered in rubble and like holding each other and dirty and stuff, but alive. And then, but I have two sisters, right? So I'm like, oh man, like where's the other one? And so I was like, okay, well, at least they made it, and but somebody brought in my other sister, and she was like, I think 4, like she's pretty young. Um, or maybe she was 7, but they carried her in because she had like she couldn't see well. She had like a lot of debris in her eyes and stuff, but she was alive too. So they all made it. Um, Most beautiful thing. Like we just held each other and cried, and everybody made it. So um, that was very powerful. Kind of going from thinking you lost everything that to getting your family back. Um, so that always is sat heavy with me, but like I got a second chance, my family got a second chance, and it's a huge part of who I am today and who my family is today. Um, so everybody but me got evacuated to the States by the Air Force. We made our way to the United Nations, their headquarters there, or they were like flying out U.S. citizens. And I told my dad, like, I need to help. Like, I'm an EMT, I'm a first responder. Like, I've had all this fire training. I wasn't a firefighter yet, but I'd done a lot, and that was the direction I was heading. And he didn't argue with me at all. He's like, "You're right. Here's the keys. You know, get a hold of us when you can." And they left. They got evacuated to the U.S. Um, so the first night I slept on the ground at the UN and woke up to somebody stealing my bag, and I had to get up and bring it back. And next day I found the car, and I don't know how to drive in Haiti. Like it's it's very unfamiliar. I know how to drive, but um these are all like diesel stick shift, like off-road dirt road like type of scenarios. And I had to make my way doing that by myself to the back to the World Vision headquarters, where I like figured out how I was going to help, how I was going to be the most effective, and what I was going to do next. Um, so I went back to the apartment. I hadn't been since it collapsed, and I didn't have anything. I didn't have my money, my ID, my clothes. I didn't have anything on me. So I went back thinking maybe I could get some of that stuff, and it had already been looted. Like the
Wow.
prisons broke open right after the earthquake. Like all the bad people were loose. Looting happened right away. Grocery stores were getting looted. People were getting shot on site. Like it just turned to chaos. And then there was a rumor of a tsunami coming, and there was one, but it was like it didn't hurt anybody. It was small. Um, but before my family left, everybody was like, "You're American. You have the golden ticket to get out of here." And I was like, "No, my golden ticket is to stay because nobody's going to be able to come in here. Like the airport's like not functioning, and all the relief that wants to come and help is going to have a hard time getting in here." So it was a few days before um like the military showed up, and the USAR teams and stuff. So I got to pull I didn't pull anybody alive out, but I got to pull body parts out and search. And I worked with what did I do first? We did food distributions. So World Vision had some food, and they put me in charge because my dad was the boss there, and they're like, "Oh, you must be just like your dad." And I'm like 19 with no experience, and um, so it went bad. It went really bad. It got out of hand. It got really dangerous. We didn't get to distribute much food, and I feel like we almost died because people just attacked us
Wow.
as they're trying to like because they're desperate. Like there's no grocery store, like the grocery stores were gone. It's already the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. People are already starving before the earthquake. Um, so I had to kind of reevaluate that approach. And we tried one more time with a clear exit and a clear entrance and some security and more order. And we got a little bit farther, but it still got out of hand. So I was like, okay, the stuff on the ground isn't working. I eventually met up with some helicopter pilots at the airport, and they were doing food distribution, and they would hover and they'd throw it out of their helicopters. And I was like, that looks like fun, and I want to help. So I did that for a week. I told them my story. I was able to kind of just talk my way into wherever I wanted to help, because I knew the language enough to get around from living there for 3 years as a teenager. And I was there when it happened, and everybody else was just coming in. So I was valuable, I guess, as far as my experience went. Uh, what else I do? I worked in a hospital. I ended up getting my EMT card out of the rubble. It was all beat up, and I had my national registry. I'd just taken it. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it
Yeah.
allows you to work as an EMT in all 50 states
Mhm.
at a national level. And I just gotten that, and I was proud of it. It was in my wallet. My wallet had been looted, like they found it, took the money out, but left my EMT card. So I took that to this. It was like a MASH hospital at the airport. It was like a big circus tent, and I was like, "I'm an EMT. How can I help?" And they looked it up. They actually looked up my national registry, and then they're like, "Okay, now just do as much as you can. Like you're a doctor now. Like you learn how to start IVs, learn how to push meds. Like, and I'm under the care of actual doctors. But I was like holding legs while they were getting amputated. I was helping, like they took a kid's eyeball out. Just all sorts of crazy stuff you'd never get to be a part of in the United States. And you just would work until you dropped. Like you could work as long as you want, and they continued to pull bodies out from the rubble, and everybody needed help. And then on top of that, there's like the gang violence going on because, as I mentioned earlier, the prisons were like broke open. So all the worst people were out on the street trying to rob people and shoot people. And so we were having like gunshot victims coming in and motorcycle accidents on top of everything else. Um, so I did that until I got burnt out. I did that for about a week. Um, I helped with like a rubble removal crew. We dug like wells out that had been covered with rubble, so like these cities could get clean water again. So that felt like productive. I worked with a small search and rescue team. And again, nobody alive, but we tried, just getting body parts out, and that was most of it. I stayed for about a month, and eventually I was just tired, and I felt like I'd done as much as I could do without just getting absorbed into the country and like dying.
Right.
Um, so I felt in my heart it was time for me to go home. So I made my way to the airport, which was closed. And everybody's like, "You're not going to be able to leave." There's been people in tents on the tarmac for weeks trying to get out. And there's only like some private charters coming and going, but nothing commercial. Like on top of that, I don't have any money. I don't have my ID. I have like no way of getting out. But I just knew in my heart, like, go to the airport. It's time. Um, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna see how far I can get. Go to the airport. There's like people there. They're not doing like flights, but there's still people that are kind of working there and making sure it doesn't get like ransacked. But I walked in, I walked past security, nobody stopped me, kept walking, made my way all the way out to the tarmac where it was true. There's people camped out everywhere trying to leave. And within half an hour, somebody came up to me and they said, "Hey, we just had like this opening on this private charter. We felt like we should ask you, um, are you trying to get out of here? Like, do you want to hop on this plane?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't have any money, but where are you going?" And they said, the Bahamas. Like we'll stop in the Bahamas, refuel, and then make our way to Florida. It's like, okay. So yeah, quicker than any US airport, I was on a plane in the air leaving Haiti, um, and just flying by the seat of my pants, like seeing what happens next. No cell phone, like no way to contact anybody that knows me. Um, but yeah, we stopped in Bahamas, landed in Florida. I was worried about customs because again, no ID, like nobody knows who I am. And now I'm in a new country from Haiti, and now I'm in the United States, and nobody stopped me. They were checking other people's IDs. Nobody stopped me. So I ended up outside the airport. It was getting dark. It started to rain. No cell phone, no money. And I hopped in this van, and they have like shuttles and stuff. So I hopped in a van, asked one of the guys if I could borrow his phone, called my dad. Hey, I'm back in the States. I don't know where I am. I'm somewhere in Florida. Um, and he said, try and get to this airport. I'll schedule you a flight, and then you can fly home. And so I shared my story, and the people in the van were like, "Yeah, sleep on our hotel floor tonight," And so I did that the next morning, and we drove for like an hour. So luckily, it was towards that next airport that I needed to be at. Um, so everything just lined up perfectly, and really, really weird. But I was like in this groove of like, just do it, just trust what's happening, and it's all gonna work out. Um, so free shuttle to the airport in the morning. Oh no, free continental breakfast first, and then free shuttle to the airport in the morning. Um, and then I still didn't have my ID, but I had to like talk my way into like them letting me on the plane, and they did, and I flew back to California. So
Wow. Wow,
crazy story.
I'm completely speechless. It's a crazy story. But there's so much in there that is, I mean, it gave me the chills. Like some of the things that you're talking about is like you knew you had to be there. There's this, I want to say that this is something I've experienced since I lived in Thailand, breaking off from the first responder world and kind of
Mm,
getting to know who I am. That connection that you have with yourself and trusting what you feel and what you know you're supposed to be doing. I feel like I now know what you're talking about. And I don't know that everybody knows that feeling, but you listen to it and it takes you to the right places if you trust it. And it sounds like that's what happened for you. And wow, just that's an amazing story. So with everything that you experienced there, how did that affect you? Did it affect you?
it definitely affected me. Yeah, so that was January 12th, 2010. Um, it's been 15 years, and almost every day I wake up and I thank God I'm alive, and for a second chance, thanking for my family. Um, when I got back to the States, I wanted to keep helping, but I didn't know how. And I started a nonprofit organization building houses for earthquake survivors in Haiti. And as a 19-year-old kid with no prior experience, no guidance, like it's tough. Like you got to figure out like the legality of a 501(c)(3) and like building your team and a board of directors and then fundraising and um what and this is like two different countries I'm working in, Haiti and the US, and what does that look like, So um I I've always been kind of like a very motivated go-getter individual. So all day long, I was like phone calls and emails and like just trying to figure out how to do it and talking to other people that had started nonprofits. And it was working. It was working out. A firm foundation is what I called it. It's not a foundation in the legal sense, but firm foundation is like a solid place to build a house.
Right.
And firm is I use the Creole spelling for firm, which means solid or strong. So like strong foundation, and it's FIRME, which you might pronounce it firme or something, and like at least here in LA, they're like, oh, firme. It means something different. But so firm foundation, and I started talking. I started sharing my story at churches and colleges and like whoever would hear me. So I wanted to spread awareness, and I think that's where the therapy came in for me. It was sharing my story, and I've shared that, like I just shared with you. I've shared this story hundreds of times, and eventually, um, I started to feel better, and I started to feel less like affected by PTSD. And for a while I couldn't sleep. I was like very twitchy, like loud noises would affect me. Um like don't sneak up on me, all this stuff. Like I had all these symptoms of like being traumatized and seeing a lot of stuff. I saw a lot of death there too. They had dump trucks of bodies that they had to take out and do mass grave burials and stuff, and that was all happening while I was there too. Um, but I got to share my story many times, and I think that's where I would like heal, or I started to heal. And every once in a while, um, I'll get interviewed like you're doing now, and somebody will ask me like a question I'd never thought of before. And I think that's where like the continued healing comes from, because it kind of gets to unlock a new part of my brain where it's good to revisit and just work through it. And is this something that I'm still struggling with or not, and um now I feel like I'm pretty good. And as a firefighter in a busy city, I see a lot of stuff on the job too. Um, but the worst day I ever had has never been on the job. I already, hopefully, I already dealt with that, and I'm not going to have a day worse than that. I hope not. Um, but that's my threshold, right? So my threshold is like way up here, and most of the like emergency calls are like down here in this level. So I can go home and be fine, and I can see this stuff and be fine. Um, where a lot of other people's worst day is like they got their coffee, their Starbucks wrong, and they got in a car accident, and like they've never had a day worse than that, and the world is ending for them. But for me, I'm very chill and collected in these violent and bad scenarios now with my job, because I've seen worse, and I know how I handle all this stuff, and that stuff's not gonna keep me up at night, where maybe it would have if that was the worst thing I'd ever seen or experienced.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions from you being exposed to this as a kid. You were already placed in a dangerous environment, and you kind of already had the idea of what an ugly world was like. So you
Hmm.
prepared yourself with death. You mentioned that you kind of accepted that you can die at any time. And then you experienced the earthquake, and that just kind of opened up a whole different part of your brain and how you viewed the world. So, do you feel that all of that preparation from being young and being exposed in an early time in your life until the earthquake helped you be able to?
Compartmentalize?
Yes, I struggle with that word. But yes, do you think that it helped you do that? You were only 19 years old, and talking to you now, just how you describe your story, your experience, and everything that you went through, you're very detailed, but you also have a lot of composure, and the way you hold yourself together, telling these details is actually very impressive. I mean, a lot of people don't know how to release those emotions or talk about their story in a way where it's very clear. And I mean, I can imagine everything that you're saying in my head, and I can vividly see these pictures that you're describing to me. And this is something you went through and you saw. So, do you feel that having this exposure at a young age helped you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I would have stayed in the country if I wasn't comfortable with like death and the country already. Like I'd already like been through all these bad scenarios even before the earthquake that we haven't talked about, but like I went through a lot of other bad scenarios too. Um, where I was comfortable staying in Haiti on my own. In like Haiti has been a hard country for years and years and years, and the most kidnappings per capita, and just like just like they kill people in really bad ways for no reason. And I knew all this, and I'd seen all this, and I just knew that I was supposed to be there, and I didn't feel like that was going to happen. I didn't feel like I was going to die. Um, because I felt like I had a higher calling to be there. Like there was a reason I was there. Um, and so, I mean, at one point, and I didn't share this earlier, um, I was held at gunpoint, told to get into a car, and they took me and demanded water. And I had to get water delivered. I was basically kidnapped. And if I didn't get water delivered, I don't know what would have happened. But at the same time, in my head, I got it delivered. At the same time, I didn't feel like that was it for me. Like this is the end. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna get through this, and I got bigger things to do. So that's how, like, yeah, that's how my brain was functioning during that time. Um, and you don't know until you're in that situation, how you're gonna respond. But that's how I responded. So,
So, how has this experience affected you or helped you in the first responder field?
um, I think the biggest part is kind of what I touched on, where I'm not I'm not phased very easily. So I can focus in these high stress environments on these critical calls and still do my job well, like the way I was trained, and not get distracted by the blood in the guts or the gunshot wounds or whatever it may be. Um, and then being able to help others that are like my colleagues, other firefighters who maybe don't have the same experience that I do, that are newer on the job, um, and working through that, because the job's not for everybody. And if you can't manage your stress appropriately, it's it's an ugly life. People end up with addiction problems or being depressed or like suicide or whatever it may be. Like those are all the negative side effects of not being able to deal with your mental health, right? So if I can be an advocate for others and recognize, when somebody's struggling, I think that pays dividends as well, being able to kind of look after my brothers and sisters in the fire service.
So, would you say that I know you mentioned talking about your story is something that helped you a lot? Would you say that that's something that you recommend to others that you work with? Hey, to talk about your story, or is there other things that you suggest to them when they're struggling?
Talking is the biggest one. I I didn't even do it on purpose for me. It just came with the territory of starting the nonprofit. Um, and also initially, like I was a pretty interesting person to talk to. Like I went through all this, nobody else had gone through that. So people talked to me, whether I wanted that or not, and they weren't sensitive to like what I'd been through. It was like a cool story to them. Um, so I had to like, it's kind of like if somebody asks you like what's the worst call you've ever been on, like I don't want to share that with a stranger or like right off the bat. That's hard, and I don't want to like relive that. Um, but I don't know. I guess you just eventually get desensitized to it, and it turns into a story, versus like reliving it. But still, with like this and sharing my experience, like half the time I tell the story, I start crying. So it's like I'm always fighting that, especially like with my family and like the emotional part of that story. And I don't like to cry. I can't help it. Sometimes it just hits me, and I know when it's like about to happen. So I'm like, I try not to, right? I'm like fighting it the whole time. So it's still like very real to me, and it's not just a story. Um, but yeah, I just think it's really healthy, and that's what I recommend to everybody initially, right? Like talk, and that's why people see like therapists and stuff. Although here, this is a good point. My family struggled a lot more than I did because they got pulled out of Haiti quickly, and they did, like my mom, they thought she broke her arm and her leg, and like they had like medical needs. So they just got taken out to get taken care of. But they didn't have the closure that I did, where I got to be there for weeks afterwards and kind of see the progression of everything going on and talk to other people that had been through what I went through. Um, so yeah, their recovery was less healthy. They ended up going to therapy for years and really struggling with PTSD. Um, but they didn't start a nonprofit initially, and they didn't share their story, and they just didn't have good closure. Um, so that set them back years. I think, that's my understanding of it, and they're good now. But it took them a lot longer than it took me. They also went through like a little bit harder of a situation, like in a collapse. Um, but there's a lot of factors, and everybody processes differently. Um, but I do think like the talking for me, hours and hours of sharing my story, has really helped. And that's kind of that's the first thing I recommend to anybody before you like do something else that you think is going to help you. Like just talk about it. I tried to write a book, when I first got out of Haiti. And I thought that that was going to be like the therapy for me to like go through everything in detail in my head, put it down on paper. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was too hard. Um, and I still haven't written a book. Like I've written some, but it's not a finished book. And I could probably do it now, after like all this time has gone by and sharing so much and like really diving into it over the years. But alone, like on a computer, like with every little thought, it was too hard.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
How was it
everybody's different, but
the first time that you shared this story? I know it had to do with your nonprofit, but what about your first podcast? How did that go? Did somebody invite you to do it, or did you say, "Hey, you know what? I think I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about my story." How did that happen for you?
that is a new question. All right, let me think about this. Um, so podcasts didn't come around, or at least they weren't as popular 15 years ago, right? It's kind of in the last 5 years they really taken off and become popular. And I only started doing podcasts, when I started a business, and the business was like initially what would kind of make make me interested to people. And then this would come up. This is like a side story of like talking about the business or being a firefighter. Um, but where I really got to share the most, was probably probably like my church initially. And then I started getting invited to like youth groups to share, like, so more like kids closer to my age, like teenagers. Um, and then it kind of just, it grew from there. Stuff started getting online, and I started getting invited to colleges and stuff. And then I wanted to raise money, and I wanted to hold fundraisers. So at the fundraisers, I would speak. And at the time, I was in the acting and modeling industry as well. So I ended up meeting a lot of people that knew how to throw events. So that really helped when I wanted to throw an event. Like there was like wedding planners that I knew and like event planners, and we did like high fashion runway shows and turned that into like fundraisers, and I would get to speak and kind of address a whole new audience, versus like just the Christians at the Christian churches. Now I'm talking to like everybody. And then that's getting filmed and put out there on social media and stuff. So
Wow,
yeah, it just kind of grew from there.
that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your businesses.
I've always been the entrepreneurial type. I've started a lot of businesses over the years. Me and my wife bought a tanning salon at one point. It was bad timing. It was during 2020, right when all these businesses started to get shut down. So we struggled through that for a few years, and it didn't make it. But as a firefighter, and even before being a firefighter, I was always kind of like inventive and creative, and I would make stuff. Um, so I made a tool, a firefighter tool called the Williams key. My last name is Williams, and it's something I made for myself. And I had a little toolbox, just full of like Wazoo tools I'd kind of acquired or like made. And there were like more rare stuff. There's like lock pick kits in there. And my background was as a carpenter, but specifically a door hanger. So I'd install doors and locks. So I knew doors and locks really, really well. And that's a great skill to have as a fireman because we got to get into these doors all the time. And if the house is burning, we'll break it down. That's fine. But if it's like somebody fell down and can't get up, we don't want to break their door. Like if I can get in without doing damage, I'd prefer to do that. And especially if I have the skill set. Um, so the Williams key, I think your listeners are non-visual, right? It's like all auditory for the
Right.
most part. Okay, so I can show you, but I can describe the key. Um, it's a very basic metal tool. It's a L shape, and there's a blade side and a hook side. And the blade side can slide behind anti-vandal plate and toggle a lock and open a
Very
door.
nice.
Um, it's mostly for like gates and like outward swinging doors. In my district, I work in West Hollywood. A lot of apartments, a lot of commercial. We use this tool every day. Um, and yeah, so initially I just made it for myself, and then people saw me pulling it out on every call and it working, and then everybody in my station wanted one, and then from there it just started spreading. And now, um, it's I've sold like 60,000 of them every state, every major city, every major department. Somebody owns one at least. And then about probably 30 different countries, so internationally as well. Um, and then actually this month, there's a deal I'd been working on for about 3 years, a subscription box. So getting this tool into a subscription box. So this month, 10,000 keys are going to people that don't even know they're getting them. And I'm hoping that'll generate some sales too, because they'll be like, oh, let me go on williamskey.com and check out what else he's got going on. And if they like it, maybe they'll buy one for a friend or something. So
Yeah.
it's really taken off. It's been nice, kind of being recognized as the Williams key guy. Um, and yeah, it's helped a lot in the fire service, and people come to me with like training questions, and chiefs talk to me from all sorts of different departments, and um, that's when the podcast thing really took off was with the Williams key, and um, yeah, it's been a journey for sure. And
Did you
that
ever imagine yourself in this position?
no, not at all, because like I didn't even mean to start the business really. It just like I was just filling a need, like a demand. And the first couple I made were like handmade, and it took me hours to make them. And before long, so many people asked, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to get these fabricated in like a warehouse or something, and because I don't want to be making these, and I just want to help my trade and my craft and help firemen be better firemen, and maybe using this tool instead of waiting for the property manager with a key might save a life. Like maybe they didn't really fall, they had a heart attack or something, and I get that feedback, I get those stories, and people have stopped suicides, and they've gotten to people who've had heart attacks in enough time to save them. And um, so that's like where I'm like, it's hard to quantify, but like I do hear the stories sometimes, and like that's super rewarding. Like knowing that something that I made a difference in a different state, in a different department, and like now somebody is still alive because of that chain of events. So the Williams Key has allowed me to like have a business platform, but I've continued to invent stuff and continue to make tools. So now I have a whole store of different things that I've made, and most of them are fire related and have to do with doors, like door wedges, and there's other tools that can open doors. Um, but it's been fun. It's been fun, and the biggest like concern is like, oh, what if this gets into the wrong hands? You know, what if a burglar, buys one or something? And I just tell people burglars don't care about like protecting your door, and they'll use a brick or a crowbar. They don't care about that stuff, and they're not going to spend money on my tools. So a brick is cheaper. Um, so I debunk that every once in a while, but yeah, for the most part, there's been no issues. I haven't gotten any like bad stories of like I got robbed because of your tool and I'm suing you or something. Like
Right.
I've never gotten anything like that.
Well, that's
So
awesome. I am just at awe with your story. I know that this is something that you experienced, and even now, it may seem that it's easier to talk about, but I can only imagine that there are some times where it's very difficult still, and it probably tugs on you a little bit. But I truly believe that you have a reason to be here. You have accomplished so much. You have put yourself out there. You've made a difference. And that is something to be so proud of. So I can only imagine that you are proud of yourself. I'm sure your family is very proud of you. Um, and as a first responder, like I'm sitting here and I'm proud of you. I can't
Oh, thank
imagine
you.
everything that you went through and how you've come out on top. That's amazing. And I think that nobody deserves it more. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
My
For
pleasure.
the listeners, if they want to be able to contact you, do you have any contact information that you can share with them?
Sure. Email is best. Trevor at thewilliamskey.com is a good one. I'm on all the social media platforms. Yeah. Send me a message on Instagram. I check that one a lot too. So the Williams Key on Instagram. Uh, Good way to get a hold of me. I'll do one more plug I forgot to share. I recently started another business and it's relevant. So there's big fires that happened earlier this year in January in California, and the Palisades burned down in Malibu and a city called Altadena, and like we had 100-mile-an-hour winds and it just took out hundreds or thousands of homes. So me and some firefighter buddies, we started a new business doing home hardening and rebuilds. So we're going around and we're actively doing this now, helping people prepare for the next big fire. The houses that withstood this last fire, or they're got lucky. Now we're teaching and we're doing inspections and we're teaching, and then we're sending construction crews in to fortify the houses and do like fireproof paint and replace wood with metal and cover up all the holes in the eaves. And we do outdoor sprinkler systems and brush clearance, a whole bunch of stuff. So that's a new business. I do need to mention it, and it's called Estate Fire Defense. So that's the newest venture, and people are like very welcoming of it. You know, they want a solution to be able to protect their homes, and um, it's going well. So
How do you have time for all of those things with
it's
being a
tough. It's really, really
firefighter?
tough. I don't have any time off really, and when I am off, like today, I'm doing things related to all his businesses and phone calls and meetings all day long and inspections. And I'm the drone guy, so I fly the drone for the inspection, and then well, I'm also the construction guy and the firefighter, so it kind of all comes together.
Okay. So your estate fire defense, is that something that you guys only do in Hollywood right now, or are you guys doing the whole state? How does that work?
Right now it's local to Southern California, LA County. So, um, and it's usually like a little bit more expensive houses that want this service and can afford it. So like these would be like multi-million dollar properties, Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Hidden Hills, Calabasas area, Woodland Hills. Um, but we will inspect anybody's house for free, and we can definitely recommend steps to take. And you know, we work with everybody's budget, and if you can't afford all of it, you know, let's start with doing some paint, or you know, or doing some brush clearance, you know, something small. And it might take you a little bit longer if you don't have the means, but hopefully we can figure out how to increase your odds to withstand the next fire, and just be educated in general.
Awesome. That's actually a really good business for other firefighters to maybe not take on in their state, but that's good knowledge to have in order to have preventative measures, you know, in their
Yeah.
communities. So thank you, Trevor, for your time, for sharing your story. Just everything. I had nothing to say. I was so zoned in. I enjoyed everything that you shared today, and hope that you guys got a lot of value out of Trevor's story, because I know I did. If you are in fire and you're interested in the Williams Key for your agency or for yourself, please visit williamskey.com. But as always, you guys be safe out there, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you again, Trevor.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me on Chapter Blue. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow and tag me on social media and share with your friends and fellow officers. If you're interested in joining an episode, I'd love for you to be a part of the conversation.
Until next time, stay safe, take care of yourself, and remember, you're never alone in this journey.